you recall, Shannon Sharpe leaves FS1, eventually lands on ESPN. Shannon Sharpe has a massive media presence of his own. He's got his own shows, became one of the most highly sought after appearances, right? People wanted Shannon Sharpe on their show. They wanted to be on Shannon Sharpe's show. If you go back to the election, there's a whole thing with Kamala Harris about wanting to be on Shannon Sharpe's show, thinking that it would get her to a whole other audience and that he was a very influential media figure. Eventually, he lands with ESPN, and then he's on First Take, and there's this kind of growing profile, and then things kind of come to a halt as an ex-girlfriend of his filed a lawsuit accusing him of a horrific thing that starts with R and ends in, well, you could kind of figure it out. Not good. So this accusation gets made. A lawsuit gets filed. Shannon Sharpe, remember, goes on the offensive, talks about how these claims are, they have no merit. And he releases some of the text messages himself, and legal people are like, holy shit, like what a kind of crazy thing to do, an ill-advised thing to do. News came out a couple weeks ago, it was a couple weeks ago, that Sharpe settled a lawsuit against this ex-girlfriend, or the lawsuit that the ex-girlfriend filed. He settled this lawsuit after claiming that there was no merit to her claims. He settles 2 weeks ago. And now ESPN has decided to cut ties entirely with Shannon Sharpe. It's a story that was broken by The Athletic, Andrew Marchand, who's always at the forefront of this stuff. When we talk about media news, Marchand is the guy who typically is the one who leads the way. But ESPN parts ways with Shannon Sharpe following the settlement. You can see it there on the screen what the accusation was. But he's been off the network since late April, which is when the suit was originally filed. She was looking for $50 million for pain and suffering, psychological and emotional distress, mental anguish, embarrassment, and humiliation. He denied the claims. Remember, it said it was a shakedown attempt. His attorneys came out. It was a very public thing. And there was a whole thing about how Stephen A. Smith kind of addressed it on his own show. And there were thoughts of, is Stephen A. Smith going to try to, strong arm the network into keeping Shannon Sharpe around? Was there a possibility that something would happen that eventually was going to lead to kind of like an irreparable relationship issue between the network and the talent? Because again, Sharpe has Club Shay Shay and has Nightcap. They're huge shows. They have a massive following. He is viewed as one of the most important media figures in sports media. And it seemed like an absolute win-win for ESPN to go and take Sharpe away from FS1, effectively ended the Undisputed show. It effectively took Skip Bayless off air, right? Skip Bayless could never find anyone else to make that show work with. It took out really the most notable show, probably, right? At least from a debate perspective that FS1 had. And they got to bring him on and give him that national notoriety on ESPN. It kind of felt like a win-win. And now, done. Now, Marchand also put out, before the lawsuit became public in April, Sharpe was apparently closing in on a major podcast deal that may have been worth as much as $100 million, the sources told The Athletic. Pretty wild. So now, Sharpe is out at ESPN. Can't imagine that he's going to go back to FS1. I don't know how FS1 could do that, especially with the allegations, right? And if you go back to what happened around Joy Taylor and what happened around some of the executive stuff and some of the other talent that were involved at FS1, it'd be kind of hard to look at that, not renew her contract. You're canceling a bunch of shows. Could they theoretically get a boost by bringing Shannon Sharpe back to FS1? Maybe. Would it be worth it? I don't know. Where does Sharpe go now, right? You can't imagine that a Fox or an NBC or a CBS would look to bring him in even for Sunday coverage, right? Where does he go? Is it possible with ESPN kind of coming to that agreement for Red Zone and for NFL Network? Could ESPN kind of sort of still have him on payroll, have him go to NFL Network? If it's not a full-on acquisition of NFL Network, could NFL Network sign Sharpe, have him on a daily show, and it just so happens that ESPN benefits from his presence there. I don't know. I just kind of wonder what's going to happen there. It's very, very interesting to me. It's going to be something that we'll keep an eye on. I can't imagine Shannon Sharpe is done. I can't imagine that Shannon Sharpe is going to be done in sports media. I find it really hard to believe that would happen.